You find the note on the kitchen counter on a Thursday morning. Rent is due Friday. I covered last month, I can't do it again. Your roommate didn't even say it to your face. You stand there in yesterday's clothes reading it twice. Your phone says 7:43 a.m. You have a shift at 9. You check your account. $34.12. You have $22,000 in student debt, a car that needs a belt replacement you keep postponing, and a credit card sitting at $3,100 that you haven't opened a statement from in 6 weeks. You are 22 years old. You are not lazy. You are not stupid. You are just standing at the bottom of something very tall with no clear idea of where the first handhold is. Every purchase is a small negotiation with yourself. The name brand painkillers go back on the shelf. The generic ones go in the basket. You calculate whether the gas to drive to the cheaper grocery store saves more than it costs. You don't talk about any of this. Nobody does. But the person behind you in line is doing the same math. And the person behind them. Money at this level is not a subject. It's a pressure. Constant, low, humming beneath every decision like a frequency you can't turn off. The first rule: at zero, every money decision is emotional. And emotional decisions compound in the wrong direction. You get a new job, $19 an hour. It's not a career, it's oxygen. You set up a separate savings account and automate $150 every payday into it. You treat it like a bill. You don't look at it for 3 months. Then your uncle gets seriously ill and the family needs help covering medical costs. You pull $400 of it. You feel sick doing it, but then you put it back, all of it, in 6 weeks, and then you add $200 more on top. That is the moment everything shifts. Not the saving, the putting it back. That decision tells you something about yourself you needed to know. You cross $10,000 saved. You're 27. You've never seen that number with your name attached to it. You don't celebrate. You just sit with it. The feeling is disproportionate to the number. You feel like you've changed categories. You haven't yet. But the feeling is real and it matters. You start reading. Not Instagram quotes, not podcast clips. Actual books. You learn what compound interest really means. You open a brokerage account. You put $2,000 in and don't touch it for a year, even when it dips and your stomach tightens. That restraint is the whole game at this stage. Everything else is just preparation for that restraint. You're earning $74,000 a year now. You have $55,000 saved. You have a retirement account you're actually funding. You are, by every conventional measure, doing the right things. Then one evening you build a spreadsheet. Honest numbers, real projections, 38 years of disciplined saving at your current income, realistic returns, no surprises. You stare at the final number for a long time. It's not a bad life. It is not the life you actually want. And you realize, for the first time with full clarity, that the plan you were given was designed for survival, not for building. The second rule: a salary is a ceiling pretending to be a floor. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You start something on the side. Small. A service. Weekends only. It makes $600 a month. Then $1,400. Then $3,100. You tell almost nobody. You reinvest every dollar back into it for over a year. Nothing changes on the surface. Same apartment, same car, same lunches. But underneath, something is accumulating. Your net worth crosses $100,000. Then $180,000. You begin to feel the gap between where you are and where the salary alone would have left you. That gap is where everything interesting happens. Now, you're 34. Net worth sitting at $420,000. A small business generating $8,500 a month. A rental property with $52,000 in equity. A brokerage account you barely touch because you don't need to. You still drive the same car. You don't bring any of this up in conversation. You've learned that talking about money at this level warps the room. People either resent it or romanticize it. Neither response is useful. You start saying no to things that used to feel mandatory. A friend's bachelor trip to Vegas where the group splits everything equally and you'd silently be covering for 2 people who planned badly. A business opportunity from someone you grew up with who has never turned a profit on anything. A family obligation that would cost you $7,000 and set back something you've been building for months. The friction is real. You feel it in the pauses in certain phone calls. You stay quiet and hold your position anyway. You stop spending money to maintain appearances and start protecting capital to build leverage. One investment returns $31,000 in 9 months. Another loses $12,000. You don't panic over the loss. $12,000 is real money, but you understand now that it's the cost of being in the game, and pulling out of the game costs far more. The third rule: below $500,000, you are still acquiring assets. Above it, assets start acquiring each other. Few years later, it's an ordinary Monday, an ordinary morning with coffee. You open your portfolio dashboard, $1,047,000. You sit with it. You thought there would be more to it. There is a clean, real satisfaction. Not loud, just solid. And then, almost immediately, a practical thought replaces it. $1 million at 4% is $40,000 a year. That is not freedom. That is a starting point. The milestone was never the finish line. It was evidence. Proof that the direction was right, that the years of restraint and reinvestment and quiet refusal were not wasted. Here's the shift. The millionaire arrives and realizes the number was never the destination. It was the proof of concept. You stop going to the events you used to attend to feel like you were part of something. Startup meetups, networking dinners, panels where everyone talks about what they're building and nobody talks about what it actually costs them. You don't have contempt for those rooms, you just don't belong in them anymore. The conversations you're having now happen in smaller spaces with fewer people and no agenda printed on cardstock. At $3.1 million, money stops being a source of stress entirely. For the first time in your adult life, it is simply a resource. The way time is a resource, the way focus is a resource. You don't think about your checking account. You think about where the capital is positioned and what it's returning and what you're not seeing. You hire a financial advisor. Fire him 4 months later when you realize your framework is more sophisticated than his. Find someone better. Fewer words, higher price. Works with people whose names you recognize from deals you've read about. Your business does $5.2 million in revenue. You hold equity in 4 properties. Your portfolio is compounding without your daily attention. You take 3 weeks off, the first time in over a decade. You don't check email for 6 days of it. That's not the achievement. The 6 days is the achievement. That's what couldn't be bought at lower levels. Wealth is not what you accumulate. It's what you no longer have to do. At $6 million, the game changes texture. You're moving capital now, not working for it. You're in a deal that will return $900,000 in 16 months. You're in another that might return nothing. You know the relationship between them. One offsets the risk profile of the other, and that correlation is the actual position. You couldn't have understood that sentence 5 years ago. You start spending time around people at $30 million. You study how they think, not what they drive, not where they vacation, how they think. The patience is longer. The pace is slower. They are not trying to win every hand. They are trying to stay in the game longer than everyone else at the table. You stop discussing money with people who don't have it. Not arrogance, accuracy. The conversations become imprecise. People project. They assign emotional weight to numbers that the numbers don't carry. At this level, $500,000 is a position size. Saying that out loud in the wrong room makes you the villain. So you don't say it. At $18 million, you walk into rooms you used to only read about. Not celebrity rooms. Rooms where decisions get made. A meeting with a family office managing $800 million that wants to co-invest alongside you. A conversation with a private equity group looking for operating partners on an acquisition. You are at that table because your capital and your judgment are genuinely useful, not as a courtesy, not as a guest. That is a different experience of mattering. Above $10 million, your reputation becomes a financial instrument. It earns returns independent of your daily decisions. Few years later, you're worth over $30 million. You make a decision you would have found difficult 8 years ago. A company in your portfolio restructures, 160 jobs cut. You know the COO. You've had dinner with his family. You don't call him. You review the financials. You hold. The margin profile improves. Your stake grows. You don't feel proud of it. You don't feel guilty about it for long either. What you feel is the distance, the thing that widens as the numbers grow. The gap between your decisions and their human consequences stretches slowly and quietly, and you don't resist it the way you thought you would when you were young and certain about what kind of person you'd remain. Your net worth crosses $40 million. You have structures in place designed to outlive you. A trust, a foundation that runs $1.2 million a year and functions partly as access. You are invited into certain rooms because of what you represent and what you can commit. You understand this transaction. You stopped pretending otherwise years ago. Pretending costs energy. Energy doesn't compound. The game no longer needs your full presence. It needs your positioning. You could disappear for 6 months and the machine would keep running. That's what the machine was always for. You are older now. Your net worth is $94 million. 3 people know the exact number. You haven't worked a conventional day in 10 years. You have not stopped working. You think in cycles now. Demographic cycles, infrastructure cycles, credit cycles. You read them the way a sailor reads the sky before the weather turns. You are sometimes wrong. Being wrong at this level means a position underperforms and you rebalance. It does not mean your life changes. 5 people in a room. Enough combined capital to reshape a mid-sized city. You speak for 5 minutes, ask 2 questions, and leave before the meal is served. No theater, no volume, just the weight of where you stand, felt by everyone else in the room. The isolation isn't loneliness, it's a translation problem. The people who've known you longest can no longer follow the conversation. That's not their fault. Your context became a different language somewhere along the way. You give more than you ever have. Not for reputation, but because money stopped telling you anything meaningful about yourself. Giving is one of the few things left that still feels like a real decision. The 6th rule, above $50 million, money stops measuring your worth. It starts measuring your reach. Somewhere tonight, a 22-year-old is standing in his kitchen, reading a note his roommate left on the counter. His account says $34.12. He gets the generic painkillers, tells himself it's temporary. He thinks this is a story about money. He doesn't know yet what actually has to change. Not in dollars, in distance, in who you have to become to reach the other end. The machine opens every morning and takes whoever shows up consistently, patiently, without waiting for perfect conditions. They compound. The money compounds, and so does everything else. The balance is $34.12. It always starts there. It always will.